الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلاة ربي وسلامه ورحمته وبركاته على ذاك النبي الكريم نبينا Muhammad وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. As we continue the chapter Kitab al-Siyam in Buloogh al-Maraam by the great Imam Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, died 200 afwan. That was early. 851 after the Hijrah. 851 after Hijrah, Mustafa, that the great Imam al-Hafid ibn Hajar, that he died and he put in Buloogh al-Maraam, rahimahullah, rahmatu wasi'ah. We talked about Sahl ibn Sa'id al-Sa'idi, the hadith, the virtue of لا يزال الناس بخير ما عجل الفطر, that the people will never cease to be upon good, or they will never cease to have good, as long as they hasten the fitr of breaking in one's fast. We finished those ahadith, and likewise the hadith pertaining to suhoor and the benefits of it, and also likewise the fawaid and the fada'il and the virtues of it, of suhoor. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, as we talked about the hadith of Anas ibn Malik, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم تسحروا فإن في السحور بركة. It says, take or eat the meal, the pre-dawn meal of suhoor, for verily in it is barakah. We talked about, there's other narrations of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, هَلُمَّ إِلَى غِذَاءِ الْمُبَارَكِ هَلُمَّ إِلَى غِذَاءِ الْمُبَارَكِ. He says, come, take this blessed meal. There's another narration of the Prophet ﷺ which says, we say yesterday, فَصُ مَا بَيْنَ صِيَامِنَا وَصِيَامِ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ أَكْلَةُ السَّحَرِ فَصُ مَا بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَ صِيَامِ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ أَكْلَةُ السَّحَرِ. He says that which is the fasl, or that which distinguishes us between the siyam of our, or the type of our siyam and the siyam of the people of the book, is the pre-dawn meal, which is called suhoor. There's another narration where the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned and said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى الْمُتَسَحِّرِينَ. Verily Allah and the angels, that they send those salawat upon the mutasahhirin, those who take the pre-dawn meal. And also the narration of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, نِعْمَ السُّحُورِ الْمُؤْمِنَ التَّمْرِ نِعْمَ السُّحُورِ الْمُؤْمِنَ التَّمْرِ. There's another narration of the Prophet ﷺ said, the ni'mah, or the best of the meals of which you eat for suhoor is the tamr. There's another narration where the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned and said, or there was mentioned and said that, for verily, not the suhoor, غِذَاء الْمُبَارَكِ فَلَا تَدْعُوهُ. It is a blessed food, do not leave it off. There's another narration where the Prophet ﷺ said, do not leave it. So all these are narrations that we talked about yesterday, showing the benefit of the pre-dawn meal that one eats towards the last minutes right before Fajr comes in, and how one should put it off Qubayl al-Fajr, as the great Imam Sheikh Salih Fawzan ibn Abdullah al-Fawzan Hafidhullah wa ra'ah, he mentions in regards to these narrations where he said, وَحَدِيث وَحَدَثَ بَعْدُ الْقُرُونِ الْمُفَضَّلَةِ مِنَ الْفِرْقِ الضَّالَةِ. I'm just reading in English. He says, what came after the virtuous centuries from those deviant sects, he said that they used to put off breaking their fasts, even from those from the Mubtadi'ah, from those who innovated in the previous religions, and even these days and times, you find some of the Muslims doing it. He says, as if in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, it's as if he's given a hint that this will happen one day. That his ummah will come, there will be people, and they'll put off breaking the fast until the stars appear. It's as if he was given a sign or a glimpse or some type of hint that eventually this is going to take place. He says, and that this will be, and this also is a sign from the prophetic signs of him being the messenger of Allah alayhi salatu wasalam, that there's going to be in his ummah those who put off breaking the fast until what? Until the stars appear. So the Prophet ﷺ basically gave an awareness to avoid this and abstain from it and not to do it. He says, فَنَبَّهَ عَلَى تَحَاشِي ذَلِكَ وَالْإِبْتِعَادِ عَنْهُ. He gave awareness to stay away from this and be far away from it. He said also, putting off fitr, likewise in the same thing when a person puts it off until the stars appear or at a later time, they think it's from piety. But it's not. He says, in it resembles to the Yahud and the Nasara. And in it is resemblance to the Jews and the Christians. He says, for verily the Yahud, they did not used to break their fast until the half a night, or until the night or half of it would pass. That's when they would break their fast, which was late. So in this, when their type of fast, this is what they would do. And the Prophet ﷺ had what? Command us to oppose them. As we talked about from the last lesson, where the great Imam Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah even mentions these similar to these narrations in that tremendous book called اقتضاء الصراط المستقيم في مخالفة أصحاب الجحيم. The obligation of sticking to the straight path by opposing the inhabitants of hell. And he mentioned these books, different types of narrations of how the Prophet ﷺ said, don't be like these people, don't resemble these people, don't look like these people. And he brings down narrations like these to make yourself distinguished from those who Allah's wrath, those who earned Allah's wrath, the Yahud, and those who Allah sent astray, who are the Christians. So in this is what? Distinguishing yourself. So it goes on to say, حتى تشتبك النجوم, that the Jews, they used to break their fast until a half a night would pass, until the stars were what? That the stars would be in abundance of them in the sky. He says, also likewise, with the people of misguidance also resemble them, from those who ascribe themselves to this ummah. He says, you'll find that they so-called out of piety, that they would start to break their fast. They wouldn't do it until absolute darkness appeared and the stars would manifest. So in this is opposing the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. He told us to hasten towards breaking the fast, and it also manifests the khayriyah, the good that the ummah will be upon as long as they what? As long as they do it. And that putting off the fast likewise is evil. And because in it of what? Mukhalafat sunnah, of opposing the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and resembling the Yahud. Also the other narrations that we talked about, we said in the last class, this narration, that the most beloved slaves to me, that Allah Ta'ala says in the Hadith al-Qudsi, the most beloved slaves to me is those who are the fastest towards breaking their fast, which is an indication that Allah Ta'ala, that He loves this action. That Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala loves who acts quickly and hasten towards breaking the fast. And what is understood is that Allah Ta'ala, from the opposing meaning of it, is that He detests those who what? Put it off. So in this narration, it likewise is the affirmation of a characteristic, which is mahabbah, that Allah loves, and that Allah Ta'ala loves righteous actions, and that it's obligatory upon the slaves to do righteous actions in order to attain and earn the love of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Likewise, you'll find in the narration, or fil hadith al-thalith, when the Prophet ﷺ said, eat the pre-dawn meal, which is called suhoor, for verily in it is barakah. Shaykh Salih Fawzani goes on to say, this is a clarification. He says that the one who's fasting, that he suppose, that the one who wants to indulge in fasting, of course, he wants to start it. He said that he should eat it, of course, right before Fajr starts. Eat the suhoor. He says, well, who are you? Oh, he skipped it. Hold on. Why did he put that there? Well, he put it in the other part. Oh. The other narration where it says, Salman ibn Amr al-Dabbi, I'm sorry everyone, that it says that if one of you was to break his fast, then let him break it upon dates. And if he does not find it, let him break it upon drinking water, for verily it is pure. He says in this narration that a person when he is fasting, that when he fasts, or when he wants to break it, everyone, that when he wants to break his fast, that he should do it upon dates. He said that this is the best thing. He said, why? Because dates, it has good characteristics, in which is not found in other foods. He says, for verily for atyabu anwa' al-halwa, of course, it is the best of those sweets, and likewise in which the body needs. Once one starts to now what? Starts his feet, or stops his fast, and he starts to eat. He said, this is the most virtuous and best thing, that a person, when he wants to break his fast, that he start with something sweet. He says, why? Because it's more beneficial for the stomach and for the inner intestines. He said, likewise, the Prophet ﷺ, this is what he used to do. That he will find ratabat. There's another narration we'll talk about, inshallah. That the Prophet ﷺ, when he broke his fast, he used to break it upon rutabat, meaning those type of moist dates. They're kind of like wet. Brothers who in Saudi brought some back, they know what I'm talking about. They're called rutab or rutabat. It's like a moist type date that you have to keep in the refrigerator. That this is what he used to eat. And if he didn't find that, he would do it upon what? Dates And if he didn't do any dates, it says hasawatin min ma. They used to drink those sips of water. So if a person doesn't find a date, then of course then he breaks his fast upon water. For verity it is pure. Why? Because it purifies the inner intestines. It washes it out from all the built up acid that has been acquired throughout the whole day. فالماء أيضا, because the water also likewise, it benefits the intestines from the empty stomach. It gets it prepared for the food that you're about to put inside of it. He says, فالمعدة الفارغة من الصيام أحسن شيء لها بعد التمر هو الماء. He says, Sheikh Salih Fawzan, he says that the empty stomach after fasting, the best thing for it after dates is water. So the Prophet ﷺ, he used to break his fast upon rutab, and I'll just explain what rutab is. He says, and if he didn't find it, then it was just regular dates. And then if he did not find that, he would sip sips of water. He says, Sheikh Salih Fawzan going on to say, he said, فَإِن لَمْ يَجِدْ حَسَوَاتٍ مِّن مَاءٍ يعني جراعات يجرع جراعات من ماء هذه سنته وأما ما يفعله الناس من إحضار المنوعات من المآكل والمشارب عند الإفطار فهذا خلاف السنة. He says that the Prophet ﷺ used to drink these sips of water, of course. This is the sunnah. He says, as for what some people do now these days, you'll see that they're bringing different types of food, different types of eat and drink and things like that during the time of iftar, during the time of breaking it. So of course it's khilaf al-sunnah, meaning eating those type of foods, starting off with it. Listen to what he also goes on to say. He said also likewise starting off with this type of food, it causes indigestion. And it also causes sicknesses. And it also causes one to be lethargic, to start to feel tired and lazy. He says that yusabbab at-tukhma, it causes indigestion and it causes sickness, and he said it also weighs heavy on the what? On the ma'idah, on the intestinal tract, or in the stomach, or on the intestines. It renders him now want to be what? Lethargic and lazy and tired. He says for the best thing is that a person starts off with something light when he breaks his fast. Breaks his fast upon dates. And how many of us know in this room, once a person, when he starts to break his fast upon lasagna and washes it down with a Pepsi, then next thing you know, he's what? Sleep. He's tired. Even myself, years ago when I first took Shahada, every time you break fast with a hot dog, hamburger, wash it down with a Pepsi and a ginger ale, knocked out. Can't even pray Taraweeh. Sleep. So in contrast, you follow the sunnah. Now, for Allah, since I started doing this, you find yourself energetic for Taraweeh. Break the fast upon dates and water. Then likewise, of course, something light. Maybe if you could drink a smoothie or something with some fruit in it. Wait about 10 minutes, then eat your meal. Then eat your meal. Then, of course, because what our brother Rafiq told me, and I have done this now, you separate your foods. Eat your carbs together. Then wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes, eat your meats together. Separate them. Each one. Because you're giving your body allowance to digest everything properly. Instead of mixing everything up, rights, meats, fats, everything, wash it down with a Pepsi, tired. Because now your body is what? Is overworking itself in order to process the food. Because you mixed everything up. So that's why you feel tired. You feel lethargic, you feel dizzy, and you can't get up to pray Taraweeh. So this is the best thing, like we said, Ya Ma'ashal Ikhwa. We said in regards to this, notice to Sheikh Salih Fawzan, he says one should start off with something light. Break his fast with dates, this is the best thing. فَإِن لَمْ يَجِدْ فَعَلَ مَاءٍ. If he doesn't find it upon water, then let him pray. Just as the Prophet ﷺ used to do. He says, because he says an abundance of different types of nutrients during the time of iftar, it will also allow one to miss off the congregational prayer in Maghrib. And he'll have to put off the salah with the jama'ah, with the congregation. And he said he will eat, and then he will put off and he will leave off on the benefit of praying in congregation, which is praying Maghrib with the people. He says if he's late for praying jama'ah, if he's now late for praying at a congregation, which is Maghrib and jama'ah of congregation, of course, and he's left off a wajib, something which is an obligation, and he'll be sinful and held accountable for that. He says, as for if you start off with lightening your fast, start off eating something light, you just restrict yourself to just dates or water. He said that would suffice. Then pray your prayer. Then after Salat al-Maghrib, then go eat what one wants of those light foods or those that which is of those legal, nice foods and wholesome foods that one wants to eat. He says, however, فيترك العشاء ويترك أنواع المأكولات والمشروبات التي يبالغ الناس الآن في تحضيرها عند الإفطار. You'll find that a lot of people, he says, even some of the times, he says they'll leave off Isha and they leave off, for example, different types of foods and drinks, and they'll go to the extremes. He says today, of bringing those type of foods when it's time for iftar. And they will leave off the salat, and they'll leave off, which is of number one, attaining the reward of praying in congregation, and also likewise, also attaining the sunnah. You'll get a reward for that. So wants to just restrict himself to that in order for what? Beneficial for his body. And then Sheikh Salih Fawzan goes on to say of three things. He said, for one does this, when he brings all these different types of foods for iftar, of course, and he eats it at that time. He said, number one, you'll find in it that it opposes the sunnah. It opposes the sunnah. He says, number two, leaving off salah in congregation. Number three, he says it causes harm upon the body, meaning upon the intestinal tract and upon the stomach, upon the ma'idah. He says, why? Because you filled it with food after it's been empty for a long period of time. He says, فَمِلْءُهَا بِالطَّعَامِ مَرَّ وَاحِدَةً فَهَذَا فِيهِ ضَرَرٌ صِحِّي. He says, filling your food up with stomach all at once, he said, verily in it, he says it's a ضَرَرٌ صِحِّي. He says it's a harm upon one's health. It's a harm upon one's what? Upon his health. He says, as for one, he eats gradually. Bit by bit, he said, for verily, this is what? This is more beneficial from the aspect of one's health. And likewise, this is more easier upon his digestional tract and his stomach and his insides. And it makes it easier upon it for the food to digest, and he will be energetic. In regards to as-suhoor, then we already took that from yesterday, so I don't think we need to reiterate what we mentioned about the benefits of as-suhoor. We talked about yesterday how the suhoor, the Prophet ﷺ said is barakah. And you'll find from some of Ahl Ilm who said that the reason of why Ahl Ilm call as-suhoor barakah, because Allah Ta'ala, based upon that food that you eat in the morning, He allows you to have that sustained energy out through the day so you can get by. So you can handle your business, and you can handle different things, all from that food that you took in the morning. And you'll find there's another narration, I forgot this one, where the Prophet ﷺ also mentioned, said, and Imam al-Bani mentioned this is in Targhib wa Tarhib al-Mundhiri. He says that as-suhoor kulluha barakah, fala tad'u. He says as-suhoor, all of it is barakah, all of it. Do not leave it off. So for that reason, we talked about the benefits of it, gives you that sustained energy. And also likewise, who doesn't want that Allah praise him and the malaika praise him when he eats a meal? Who doesn't want that? It says clearly in the hadith, verily Allah and the angels what? They send that praise upon the one who takes the pre-dawn meal of suhoor. Who doesn't want the angels and Allah to praise him? Who doesn't want that? So that is the fada'il. And also likewise in that you're actualizing the furqan, of distinguishing yourself between haqq and batil by making yourself and the people of the truth, and you opposing those who are upon falsehood by eating that pre-dawn meal. And what distinguishes us between the fasting of the people of the book. So that's another beneficial aspect in which one that he attains when he takes the pre-dawn meal. So we talked about those benefits. I don't think we need to reiterate again. Last hadith, and we'll stop here inshallah bi'idhnillah. The next hadith, Imam al-Hafid ibn Hajar mentioned in Buloogh al-Maraam, that he says on the authority of Abu Hurairah, Abdur-Rahman ibn Sakhr al-Dawsi, that he mentioned, says, قال نهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الوصال فقال رجل من المسلمين فإنك يا رسول الله تواصل قال وأيكم مثلي إني أبيت يطعمني الله ويسقيني فلما أبوا أن ينتهوا عن الوصال واصل بهم يوما ثم يوما ثم رأوا الهلال فقال لو تأخر الهلال لزدتكم كالمنكل لهم حين أبوا أن ينتهوا. To the end of the narration. So the Prophet ﷺ prohibited what they call wisal. Notice al-Hafid when we read this narration, he put it directly after speaking about what everyone? Speaking about suhoor, and he was talking about also likewise iftar, or one hastening towards breaking his fast. And we'll get the reason for this inshallah bi'idhnillah. So it says that the Prophet ﷺ that he prohibited what they call wisal. Wisal is that a person continue his fast for days at a time without breaking it. He Say he prohibited what they call wisal. So a man from the Muslims said, "O Messenger of Allah, you practice wisal." So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, "Wa ayyukum mithli?" Which one of you is like me, similar to me, or like me? Verily I come upon the night, Allah gives me that food and He gives me drink. It says, from when they refuse to stop, meaning refrain from wisal, the Prophet ﷺ continued to fast days at a time without stopping, day after day, until they seen the hilal, from when Ramadan was over. He says, and then the Prophet ﷺ said to them upon this, he says that the hilal was later. He says, I would have kept going and I would have increased you. Why did he say that, alayhi salatu wasalam? He said that in order to discipline them, to show them I can put up with it, your body can't. I can sustain it, I can take it. My body can hold up, your bodies cannot do it. So it says in the narration that he said this, that he wanted to discipline them when they refused to stop. So the Prophet ﷺ, that he prohibited what they call wisal. And this hadith is the prohibition to do that. That a person continue to fast 2 days, 3 days without stopping, without breaking his fast by, for example, not taking what? Breaking his fast at the time of iftar, from Maghrib. You'll find there's another, and inshallah we'll talk about, there's another narration al-Bukhari. There's another narration al-Bukhari. He says that if one of you wants to practice wisal, if he does it, let him only do it ila waqt as-sahar. Let him do it only at the time for sahar, at the time of the morning, meaning what? The time for fajr. If you want to do it, that's the only time, that's the latest you can go. Like for example, a person didn't want to do it what? Do it for Maghrib. He didn't want to break his fast, even though that's the best thing to do, and that's what's more preferable, and that's more reward as far as in the ajr. You'll find, because if a person does this, then he loses off on the benefit of what? Of the iftar, where the Prophet ﷺ told one to break his fast, whereas he loses out on the practice in the sunnah, and on top of that, like we said, all those different benefits of breaking the fast so he can be energetic for the other different prayers and other types of ibadah that he's making preparation for when he breaks his fast. He said, for if one wants to do it, he says, then one can only do it at the time up to fajr. That's it. Meaning that you stop at that time, then you break it. That's the latest, and that's the furthest one could go as far as if you wanted to continue to do it. So you'll find that Ahl Ilm, that they say, just to draw up, and we can just sum it up by saying, what is the best thing to do, and what is the best as far as agreeing with the sunnah, that which coincides with it, and that which is the best thing of reward, and the greatest, is that one breaks his fast at the time of Maghrib. And if he so-called wanted to carry on, that the latest time that he can do it is what? At the time what they say, waqt as-sahar. Meaning at the time right before Fajr, or at the time for Fajr comes in, if he wanted to continue his fast. And that's it. In order to bring this narration and combine it with the other one, which is in Bukhari, where he says, if one of you wanted to do it, then let him do it up to sahar, at the time of the morning. Meaning up to time of Fajr. So that's together between all those narrations. And there's other details in this matter which will continue tomorrow بإذن الله جل وعز. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Anything? Any questions about the lesson? As if you want to ask me something, Umar, but it has nothing to do with the lesson. Fill your stomach up with food. I'm sorry. Fill your stomach up with food. You know how that goes when you fill your stomach up with food. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was a subqali sign. Plus, on top of that, my brain is not working fast at all. Brain right now is working on fumes. Say it again. Say it again. I'm sorry. The best is to break at Maghrib. Based upon that, I mean, what you would think is that what is took from these narrations, that there is some type of reward for it. As a matter of fact, I can read it for you right quick. He says, لا تواصلوا فأيكم أراد يواصل فليواصل إلى السحر. It's in Bukhari. Prophet ﷺ said, do not practice wisal. He says, if one of you wants to do it, let him do it continuously to a sahar, up to the time of sahar. There's a narration of Abdullah ibn Umar that during the time of Abdullah ibn Umar, when he broke his fast, he had only one meal. He had a meal. And he seen people who was needy, so he'd give them their meal. So he wouldn't be able to eat that all the way up to probably that time. So he would go all those long time without eating. So he seen the people who was needy. He took his meal, he gave it to them. So that he wouldn't have no meal all the way up to the time for suhoor. You understand what I'm saying? So in that is a reward. That's a very virtuous act, because I don't know nobody do that today. That's virtuous. That's why the Sahaba was on a different level. They was different people. There's nobody doing that today. I'm breaking fast, so I'm eating my meal. I'm not putting that off. But that was during the time of the Sahaba where Abdullah ibn Umar's narration where he did that. And on top of that, that's one narration. Man, my brain is not working as fast as it usually is. He said, the physician. You saved me. Tafadal.
Or do you try to eat something, make your attention, whether it be a date or just simple water, and then go to your body? What would be like oversleep, you wake up in this fog? Oh,
if the time for Fajr comes in, you can't eat anything. Anything. You can't eat and drink anything. If you went to sleep upon your niyyah and you woke up after the time came in, your fasting is valid. If you went to sleep upon your niyyah, upon your intention, you make your intention in your heart. You don't do it. You don't do it with your mouth. The intention is done with the heart. Don't say it verbally. You go to sleep at night. As long as you went to sleep upon your intention, you wake up at the time for Fajr, then your fasting is valid. If the time for Fajr is in, you cannot eat or drink anything. If you see that the adhan is in, matter of fact, alhamdulillah, I just read Sheikh Abdul-Aziz bin Baz, rahimahullah, that he bring a fatwa talking about that. He was asked a question where he said, is it permissible for one to eat after the time for Fajr? We see times when people that they eat while the adhan is being called, and then people, when they wake up, they are actually eating. They are actually eating when they just all of a sudden woke up hearing the adhan. Now they want to go start eating. He said, as far as those who wake up and the time for the adhan is going off and they're eating, he said those people, their fast is incorrect. He says there's a difference between someone who woke up and they're eating and the adhan came in while they were eating, then the people who woke up at the time for the adhan, they're rushing to grab something to eat. He says the person who's eating and he's eating his food and the adhan is going off, then of course you can eat what's in your hand. You can eat what's left in your hands. You could do that. Up to the when the adhan stops, you finish up what's in your hand or what you have with you, finish it up, you're good. He said those for people who fast is valid. Now as far as the person who's waking up, the adhan is probably they're at the last part of the adhan. The last part of the adhan is about to be over and they're rushing to get some water. You can't do that. He said that's what's impermissible. So it's a difference between a person that eats prior before the adhan and he has something still in his hand that he can eat and finish up, than a person that you woke up in the time of the adhan until it was what? Until it was over. Doesn't matter. At the time, once the time to stop eating is in, you cannot eat and drink anything. If you went to sleep upon your niyyah, your salat, your siyam or your fasting is valid, as long as you went to sleep upon your niyyah. Yeah, just make the day up. That's it. Just make the day up. If you did it out of, in contrast to the person who ate, he was already eating. It's different. Then he can finish up his food and eat. It's not sinful. If you did it out of ignorance, then you're not sinful. If you did it out of ignorance. If you did it out of ignorance, you're not sinful. Oh, Siyam? We'll talk about Mehdi again. Was it talking about something sexual? It's about what again? What's wrong? Are you talking about the times? I mean, it's really nothing you could do here. Abdul Hakim, can you cut the computer off for me?
So this morning, I had 3 people call me.
Oh.
So everybody called me